In Navajo culture, a skinwalker is a type of harmful witch or spirit who has the ability to turn into, possess, or disguise themselves as an animal or a human. The term is never used for healers, and they are strictly malevolent beings. The following you're about to hear are 3 allegedly true scary stories from people who claim to have encountered skinwalkers. Enjoy. And remember, listen with the lights off. Number 1. I was a kid when this happened. My uncle and I were finishing up chopping/gathering firewood for my grandmother because it was getting dark. Driving back on a dirt road at about 30 miles per hour, give or take 5 miles per hour, I had this awful sense of being watched. Before I could turn to look out my window, passenger side, my uncle quickly shouted, "Don't!" I completely froze. My heart felt like it was beating out of my chest, then completely stopped when I heard a tap tap on my window. My uncle sped up and was loudly praying in my native language. I didn't know what was going on and thought it was over till our truck suddenly dipped from the bed. My uncle then started saying, "Look at me," and "Don't turn away," over and over. Then I heard it again, tap tap, but from the window behind me. It was getting harder for me to breathe and I wanted to cry. A minute or 2 passed and the truck dipped again. My uncle looked around and sighed. It was quiet besides the truck and the road. He looked at me and said, "We will ask your father to do a prayer in the morning, so the evil will forget our faces." That's just the Navajo to English equivalent. I remember curling up on the seat and just staring at the radio watching the time, listening to my uncle sing an old prayer till we got to my grandmother's house. I called my uncle because I had a nightmare about that night. We talked about it for a bit. He said, "I didn't see faces, just eyes, like brake lights you see on the road. It watched you." Again, Navajo to English equivalent. Before hanging up, I tried joking with him about it. "Why didn't you just step on the brake when it was in the back?" No laughter, just a pause. Because it wasn't alone. Number 2. We live in a rural community on the Navajo reservation. My aunt and her 2 brothers were home alone while my grandparents had left for the evening to attend a chapter house meeting. They were in the house, and like many people from the reservation, they didn't have electricity. It'd been dark outside for about an hour, and my aunt and my uncles were getting ready for bed. Outside, they heard noises, as if someone was moving things around outside. My oldest uncle went to look out the front window and saw a figure out by the truck. This was immensely out of the ordinary because the closest neighbor we had was miles away. Whatever it was opened the truck door and began to dig through the personal items that my family had left in the vehicle. My aunt and my uncles were frightened by the sight and knew they should take action. They took out the rifle we had and all steadied themselves to hold it up. They flung open the door and aimed the gun at the dark figure. The figure turned and started to walk towards them, totally unfazed by the weapon. My uncle pulled the trigger, but nothing happened. The figure drew closer and my aunt began to smell something, almost like a rotting corpse. It was so strong it made her gag. My uncle continued to pull the trigger with no luck and the figure came closer and closer. Off in the distance, headlights were coming up the road. My grandparents were returning. The figure looked towards the lights and started to move away and tucked itself behind a tree near the house. My oldest uncle ran toward the truck with the gun. My grandfather got out of the car and my uncle pointed to the tree. The thing was poking out its head to observe what they were doing. My grandfather ran into the house and over to the stove and I grabbed a handful of ashes and rubbed over the gun and placed the ash-covered bullet into the chamber. He walked out onto the porch and fired toward the tree. Whatever that thing was didn't expect the gun to go off. The gunshot echoed and the dark figure began running. My grandma chased my aunt inside and my uncles and my grandfather went after it. There weren't many roads or paths, so as my grandfather and uncles chased after the figure, the truck was bouncing and the headlights were not fixed on one particular spot. My uncle swears that whenever the headlights would hit the figure, he saw a woman. Not only that, whoever it was running on all 4s like a bear. My grandfather eventually stopped the truck as they neared a ditch that drops about 20 feet. He got out and began to yell in Navajo. My uncle says that he was yelling about a local woman. He yelled that he wasn't scared and that he knew it was her and to leave his family alone. A few days passed and there was news that the woman that my grandfather was yelling about had passed. I've always been told that if you know who the Skinwalker is, say their name and it will kill them. Number 3. There was one time I went camping with 2 of my buddies, but neither of them are the real outdoorsy types. I was just kind of getting them into the whole camping/hunting scene. Now, I love hiking. Exploring, more like, because I hate just walking a trail. You're seeing nothing new. So I took the 2 friends out there a ways, and we got 2 miles from camp when they wanted to go back. I said fine and showed them where to go on my phone and made them put a waypoint on the other little GPS thing I had to follow. I wanted to keep going, so I did so by myself. They wanted the pistol I had on me for safety reasons, leaving me to walk alone in the forest with water and nothing else. No big deal, I thought. I found a steep hillside with rocks all the way down when I was about 5 miles from camp, and decided to go down. I followed the path at the bottom of this thing, which was at this point just a dry riverbed. I walked down and it got steeper as I went further south. When I crossed a certain point, something just felt wrong. I started trying to look around for anything, but there was a huge log across the 2 hillsides, and when I crouched down to crawl under it, it felt like I was being watched. I looked up to my left, but saw nothing. Looked around to see if there was anything in the middle of the riverbed, then looked up to the right. Huge black canine. Too small to be a bear, but it looked like a wolf on steroids. That dog creature and I held glances for what felt like hours, but I know it couldn't have been more than 10 seconds. Every passing moment made the feeling of dread worse. I moved backwards to get the hell out of there, and when I moved, the wolf thing just booked it into the forest, further from camp. In hindsight, this thing was moving faster than any dog I've ever seen. Hey guys, True Fear here. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Drop a comment if you want and I will try and reply to all comments. Obviously I'm just starting out, so I will be replying to all comments. Thank you to anyone who's actually watched the whole video. There will be more to come. I'm going to try and upload 1 to 2 times a week. I'll come out with an upload schedule when I know more about it. And yeah, comment which story freaked you out the most. I know mine would probably be the first one. And do you guys want to see more Skinwalker videos? Let me know in the comments. That's all guys, thanks for watching. And remember, always watch my videos with the lights off.